Hey guys, so what is the best way to learn Chinese characters, and can you learn 1,500 characters in 3 months? So first, a little bit of background. Up till now I've been learning Cantonese for about 10.5 months, and I've been focusing completely on speaking using romanizations such as Juping to learn to listen to the dialogues, and I've also been speaking as much as possible. So ever since I got back from Hong Kong especially, I found my progress has slowed down a lot, and not being able to read and write in the language is really, I think it's really crippling my progress. So if one can read Chinese, then effectively you can turn your phone, turn your computer, text friends, read books, magazines, blogs, whatever. You can basically transform your entire life and just switch it over to that language. And if you cannot read and write, then you can't do any of that. So I really think to progress past the intermediate level, and learning characters is definitely the best way to go. So the task itself seems absolutely massive, and to be honest, it's a bit overwhelming, and I wasn't quite sure where to start until I found something called the hyperlinks method. So what this does is it uses something called imaginative memory, and you start off with the smallest characters and the radicals, and you basically, with Chinese characters, you have these small components called radicals, and then these radicals come together to make small characters, and those small characters come together to make the even bigger characters. So effectively, after you learn all the basic radicals, you're just putting together the things that you know in different ways to form more and more characters. So the more you know, the easier it gets. So initially I thought I was just going to start reading and texting friends, and then taking the characters that keep on coming up again and again and just learning them. But when I started looking at the characters, some of the most frequent ones have a lot of strokes, and they're very, very complicated. So I wouldn't even know where to begin. I'd probably end up relying on rote memorization and having to write them out hundreds of times before they start to stick, if they do stick. So I think it's just a very inefficient way to learn. So if you're like me, I like having a start point, an end point, and I like having a systematic way to get from A to B. So that's why I've set the goal 3 months, and the reason 1,500 characters is because that is how many is in learning the traditional characters, the hyperlinks method, book 1. So except this is the book that I'll be using, the hyperlinks method by James Heisig, Remembering the Traditional Hanzi by James Heisig, and it starts off with the smallest characters and uses something called imaginative memory, starting with small ones and then building it up from there. And it's a really systematic approach. In this way, and I should point out as well, you're learning the characters out of context without the pronunciation, and most people might say that's a bad thing, but for someone learning Cantonese especially, anything that has pronunciation, guys, is always in pinyin from Mandarin. So I think for someone learning Cantonese, this is probably the best way to go. So yeah, I'm going to be learning the characters out of context. So what that means is I'll learn the keyword, the meaning. So for example, the number 1, the English word for eye, cat, dog, that sort of thing, and learning the characters by themselves, learning to read them and to write them. So normally I would say learning out of context is bad, but because I can already speak quite well, and I'll be looking up the Juping as I go to find out how to pronounce the words, if I come across a character that I already know the spoken word for, I know how to use that character in context because I can already speak and I can already use it in a spoken context. So for that reason, I think this will be very good. So when I said using imaginative memory, what it is it forms mental images in your head, and you use them to associate a picture with a keyword, and then that picture will help you recall the character. So it doesn't rely on rote memorization at all. So if I flick through to find a quick example of this character here, and this is back to front line because I'm filming my phone, but this one is meaning to tell fortunes, and you can see here that at the top, that stick there means magic wand, and at the bottom that means mouth. So right away you can think of an image, think of a fortune teller, she's waving her magic stick around, looking at the crystal ball, and then speaking through her mouth to be able to tell the fortunes. So instead of trying to remember the strokes exactly, I have that picture in my head, and then it tells me which components to use, and then you put the components together and you get the character. So that way, starting with the smaller ones and the radicals, each radical has its own meaning. So you put them together, and systematically you can build up characters quite quickly. So that's the basics. So obviously, when I finish this book, I'll know 1,500 characters. I should be able to recognize them and produce them written down, and associate them with a key meaning. But obviously, it doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to be able to use them all in context in either reading or writing. So this is kind of a first step to jump up the amount of characters you know, and then hopefully you can get into reading real context, real Cantonese, real Mandarin, whatever you're learning. So I'm going to talk a bit about exactly how I've been going about this. So I should point out I started on September the 1st, and I'm going to be learning for 90 days, so that would take me just up to the end of November, start of December time. So 90 days, and because I know what my deadline is, I know how many characters I need to learn, I can calculate how many I need to learn a day. So that's 50 characters every 3 days. So every morning before work I learn 10 using the hyperlinks methods, using imaginative memory and associating the characters. Maybe takes half an hour, 40 minutes, and then when I get back from work I do another 10, and I do this for 2 days. That's 40 characters, and on the third day I learn 10 in the morning and leave the afternoon to review. And I mean, sometimes not only does it give me a chance to review the characters regularly, but it also means that if I get behind, it gives me a bit of wiggle room. So yeah, so how am I going to review the characters? And this is where the second part comes in, and I've been using an app on my phone called Anki. So Anki is an SRS software. So what that means is you put all the information you want to know into your phone, into the app, and it tells you when you're likely to forget it. The app tells you to relearn it, and then I'll just write it out again. So what I have is, and I'll put a picture up on the screen now. What I have is the keyword and the Ping pronunciation guide on side 1, and I have the character and the frame number from the book on side 2. So when I see the side 1, I write and produce the character, and that's what I've been doing here. I have a small book that I've been using to practice writing the characters. So if I'm on the train, whatever, just got a bit of spare time, I have this small book, I have a pen, I can practice writing out wherever I am. And actually I'm quite lucky this year, being a regional role for work, I'm travelling around quite a lot, so I'm ending up spending a lot of time reviewing on trains and things, so that's actually been really useful. And one thing that I should point out, and this is very important, is to make sure you put the frame number on side 2 of the character. So when you're reviewing from Anki, it's very easy just to rely on the SRS system and rely on rote memory. So instead of just writing out again and again until I remember it, if you forget it, you look at the frame number, go back to Heisig, look at the mnemonic again, get the imagery clear in your head, and then go back to writing it out. So it should not be relying on rote memorization at all. That should just be to make sure to capture what you learn and find out any gaps in your knowledge and keep you reviewing so you don't forget anything. So that's it. If you want to know more, I've written a detailed blog post about this, and I've put a link to this in the description. And if you wanted to buy either Heisig, either Remembering the Hanzi book, or have a look at Anki or anything like that, I've put hyperlinks in the blog post so you can just have a look and follow the links. So that's it for me today. I've started on September 1st. I'm at about 300 characters now, 18 days in, and I'm going to be aiming to finish by December the 1st. So I'll be posting updates and how it's going as I'm progressing, and what I'm finding at the moment is the further I get, the review time on Anki is getting bigger and bigger and bigger the more characters I have, and it's only going to increase, so I'll let you know how I get on with that So yeah, that's it for me today, guys. As I said, I've linked the blog post in the description, and that's got all the information in detail if you want to try it out for yourself. And if you are doing anything like this, please leave me a comment and let me know. I'd like to hear from your guys' experiences learning characters, if you have any. And that's it. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Peace.